Hello everyone, my name is Brady Bell and I'm with the Humble Pursuit. Today we're shooting our first video and we are going to talk about weighted batch pre-processing. So this is where you take all of your calibration frames, your light frames, you put them all into the script and it calibrates, debears, cosmetic correction, registers, normalizes, and stacks all your images for you. So we feel like this is a good place to start with in PixInsight. So this is what I use to do all my pre-processing and processing in. It's a pretty powerful tool. It's what I actually started with. I know a lot of people probably started with Photoshop because it's a little bit more widely available and has more uses than just astrophotography. This is what PixInsight's for. It's a really powerful tool, and I've actually found it really easy to get a pretty good understanding of the basics. So let's dive right in. So here I already have the screen pulled up for weighted batch pre-processing, but I can just close that. And so to find it, you go up to Script, go to Batch Processing, on over to weighted batch pre-processing, and it'll load here. And here we go. So it brings it up. This is the first page you'll see, and then you can have your options to add your lights, flats, darks, and biases. You can use a directory and files. I don't ever use those, just in case. So let's go and add lights. So I'll go over here, and today I'm gonna just run through a stacking of my data for the M63 Sunflower Galaxy. Let's see, capture that with my TPO 6-inch f4 Newtonian. It's right here, and my ASI 183. As you can see, I've already done this once. So we'll go down to here to lights. I captured this on April 29th from my backyard. So we'll click this, select all of these, Control A, load those up, and since I have grouping keywords session, I'm actually going to uncheck that because I don't need it. If you had more than one night's of data, you'd probably want to group by keywords. I use session. I just do session and the date. Helps keep all my flats and dark flats and lights together. Then next we'll go to flats. So I'll go to my flats file here. Done on the 29th. Load all those up. Then we'll go to darks. Go to my dark flats, load all those up. I don't know, some people keep them all in one folder for each night's data. I just keep them in individual files for darks, dark flats, and flats. And then, so I actually put those in the darks category. I know some people say you can put them in the bias. I've never tried it, but if it helps keep it a little bit straighter in your mind, then that would be fine. So I need to go add my darks, and so I actually use a dark library. So I'm just going to be adding a master. This is 180 seconds, gain 0. My master that I've already stacked. So I stack my darks individually by themselves a lot faster. And just so then they're ready to go when I'm ready to process an image. And then I'll actually, once I do my dark flats and my flats, I'll get rid of the individual frames and just keep the masters. Okay, so now we'll go over here. We got our dark flats and our dark, master, our flats, and then all of our lights. So we'll go over here to calibration next, and this is where it'll show you if you have the right stuff loaded. So as you can see, it shows our two darks that we have. So it has 60 frames of dark flats, our master dark, and our 60 flat frames. And you'll want to come over here and do detect masters from path. It just automatically detects if there's a master. And another thing that's really good to have checked is if you plan on drizzling, the drizzle weights and rejection maps, and then the save groups on exit. I just recently discovered this. If you have to close out of this for some reason, it will keep all of this information saved, which has been really helpful. If you're like me, you can be kind of forgetful sometimes. So you can come down here, click on your light frames, and it'll actually highlight in green which ones are attached to that. So if you had several groups of light frames, you could click on this and it would actually highlight which flat frames and which dark frames go with those lights. Same thing with the flats. If you click on that, it highlights the dark flats. So if you have multiple sessions, it'll actually show you which ones are linked. And the neat thing is that you can either have them in auto, which is what I usually do, but on weird instances where you may have something weird going on, you can actually select which dark frame you want to use manually. So one thing we need to do here on this screen is come over here to cosmetic correction. And I'll select my cosmetic correction here. So let's see, like I'll show you here, I can exit out of this, come over here. So you would go to find cosmetic correction, you go to process. I do all processes, a little easier for me. And then cosmetic correction. And I can show you what I use for mine. So if you're using a one-shot color camera, you definitely need to make sure CFA is clicked. And that stands for the color filter array, or the barometrics. So if you're using a one-shot color DSLR, you need to have this clicked. And I use auto detect. And I do hot and cold sigma just at the defaults. And then if you want to make that a process icon that you can save, you just have to do a little triangle here, and then you drag it, and then you can rename it, and then you just come over here, right click, where is it at? Save selected icon, so you would like highlight all the ones you wanted to save. And I just have all of these saved on the right here as process icons. And so every time I load up PixInsight, I just load up my process icons, so they're here. And so we go back to script, batch processing, weighted batch pre-processing, and hopefully I didn't lie to you and everything loads up like it should. And it did. So there we go. So we have our cosmetic correction. And so I think it's, I don't know if it detects if it's a one-shot color camera from the FITS headers or not FITS keywords. I'm not sure. But if you're using a one-shot color camera, you definitely, or DSLR, you definitely want to make sure that you click the CFA. And I just use the auto, mosaic, and the VNG, which I think is the default. You could probably mess around with these if you wanted to. I never have. And that's kind of it. I think the output pedestal, I've never used it, is for narrowband, I believe. You can create a pedestal that helps with some of the pixels that would maybe be negative or something. I'm not entirely sure. You'd have to look that up. I know Adam Block has a really good video on it. And then so post calibration, this kind of just lays out all of what you got going on. So I have 127 light frames, 180 second exposures. I don't have a filter indicated, but I did use the Optolong L Pro for my Galaxy. It's an RGB color space, in which you could change that. You could have it do separate RGB where it spits out the red, green, and blue instead of just a one integration of the RGB file, or you can do both. And so I'm actually going to drizzle because the PixInsight people recommend for one-shot color cameras to do at least drizzle with one. It helps with the color calibration due to the debayering process, is the explanation I was given. Okay, and so you can go look at your pipeline, which lays out every step it's going to do. So it's going to do integration of the dark frames, flat frame calibration, so it'll calibrate the flat frames with the dark flats, and then it integrates those calibrated flats, and then it'll do calibration of the light frames with the dark frames and the dark, or the master dark and the master flat. And then you'll do cosmetic correction, debayer, and then it does some measurements, bad frame rejection, and that has to do with if you've got some frames that you didn't blink well enough, it could get rid of those. So let's go back over here to lights, because you might have seen over here on the pipeline, these are the active steps. So we have subframe weighting, image registration, local normalization, and image integration selected. And so where you would actually choose those, or what you wanted, is over on your light frames tab. You can choose subframe weighting and which one you actually want to use. I use PSF signal weight. I find that it gives me the best results with the, to me it just seems a little bit better in selecting what frames to keep. I've used PSF scale SNR a little bit, and you can hover your mouse over them and it'll give you explanations on each one. And I definitely recommend, if you have the time, to try out the different subframe weighting and find out kind of what works best for your data. Then there's image registration, and you can choose what you want. You can choose different interpolations. I just let it pick. It's going to do a better job than me, I'm assuming. And then astrometric solution. I have this checked. If you don't have it checked, or you're running an older version of PixInsight that doesn't have this in the weighted batch preprocessing script, to use the SPCC color calibration tool, you have to have it the astrometric coordinates. So if you don't, you have to go up to script, the image solver script, which is in, let's see, image analysis, image solver, and you would have to image solve or plate solve your image before you could use that. So let's get back into weighted batch preprocessing. Takes a little while, on mine anyway. Let's go back to the lights here, and then local normalization. You can change. So I have integration of best frames for my reference frame generation. You can just do single best. I find that the integration of best frames works better for me. And the evaluation criteria is the same, the PSF signal weight. And so we can close that out. And if you don't want to run some of this stuff, all you have to do is simply just uncheck it. And then image integration. I just let it auto select. I used to use just Winsorized Sigma clipping. And I was getting pretty good results, but I feel like sometimes it wasn't doing a great job. And I feel like it's definitely been doing, or getting better results for me, using the auto function. So I know, like, depending on the amount of frames you have, some of these work better, and some of them work worse. Some of them tend to work better at removing satellite trails if you don't blink those out. Like, if you don't use blink and get rid of those, I typically don't. And when I was using Windsor as Sigma clipping, sometimes some of those satellite trails would make it into the final image, and I've seen less of that since switching to auto. And then I just leave everything at default. I know some other people suggest that default is just values that they put in here as placeholders, and that you need to adjust some of this stuff. If you really want to get into the weeds, you can read up on some of this stuff, and and you hover over it, it tells you what it is, and kind of what the values mean. And if you kind of want to get really deep in the weeds, I would suggest watching Adam Block's videos over on YouTube about WBPP, because he has a lot of really good videos that really go into detail about a lot of this stuff. I'm just kind of giving you an overview of what I do, and that's kind of it. So next, you'd want to select your output directory. Mine is already selected. You just click the little file here and go to your file. And then so when you run it, what happens is it'll start running through here, and as it completes each step, it generates these files. And so I can show you here. I mean, I'm not going to run it right now, but so you'd click run, and then it brings up this diagnostic message. You can ignore this first little warning. It's just saying if your file path has too many characters. It's nothing really to worry about unless you have some crazy file names. I don't use bias because I'm using a cooled one-shot color camera. I don't need biases. I think if you're using a DSLR, you definitely should be taking bias frames. And then so it's just telling you that. And so if you didn't have, if for some reason you forgot your darks or your flats, or for some reason your lights, it tells you that and saying like, hey, just check this in case you wanted these on there or not. And then it shows you how much storage, disk space it's going to take up, and kind of each step. And then you just click continue, and it just shows you the steps. And so I have a lot of this in the cache. So that took 360 milliseconds. So not long for the integration of those. And a lot of this won't take long because it's already in the cache because I already ran it. So it would run through all of these steps. I'm just going to cancel it for time-wise, so you're not having to watch all of this, and I'm not having to pause the video. So yeah, so when it's done running through all that, over here on the here, it says it's done. And then you would go to your file, and it would look like this. So it would have registered, your masters, logs, debayer, cosmetized, and calibrated. And you click on your master, and then this is fairly new, showing the light, the local normalization reference light, and maybe that's because I switched to the best frames instead of just the single best. But so you get your master dark, your master flat. This is new too. I don't know. Oh, because it generated another one. Okay. And then your master lights. So you'll have your non-drizzle and your drizzle master. And so you would just drag that up here. Oh, because I'm still in this, I gotta get out of this. Done, and it gives you a smart report that you can save if you want, but it's all in the log. You can exit out of that. Go back. Oops. Here. Travel to your file. Master, and then drizzle. And click and drag that up here. And it'll show you, I didn't have auto, you can auto crop it. I don't have auto crop selected. I feel like it wasn't necessary, and doesn't always like how it cropped the image. So you can just close that, or I actually use it to, when I do decide to crop, if I want to just crop the edges where I need to crop it, because I'm dithering, so all the frames don't quite line up. But for this purpose, I can just close that. And then I open STF, screen transfer function, which you can find in the process, all processes, screen transfer function right there, STF, and it'll pop up like this. And when you click the nuke button to stretch it, which it's just a preview, it's not actually stretching the image permanently. It'll probably look something like this. Don't freak out, your image is not green. You'll just click this little chain link thing, and so it's the link the RGB channels. You can click that and then click the little nuke button again, and it'll show you your image. And as you can see, I've got a pretty good gradient going on here, and I'll use dynamic background extraction, especially on images like this where there's not a ton of stars, there's not nebulosity all over the frame. DBE works really, really well, and that's where I'm going to leave off today. So I really hope you enjoyed this. I plan on making tons more videos. I plan on doing some live streams when I'm doing planetary. Even I'll plan on doing some live stacking of nebula and galaxies, and I'm just really excited to start making this content, and I really, really hope that you like and subscribe to this channel, and I'm just super excited to start this journey, and I really hope you join me on it. So thank you.